Hey, welcome back to the CA Power Player Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins, live from Springfield, Missouri today with, man, this dude, okay, I'm telling you what, this is going to be a special interview. This dude, that's a special story. He's accomplishing a lot. If you're out there and you're like, man, I would love to help agents and clients all over the U.S., not just like in my little bitty pond right where I'm from, then this is the interview for you. If you think big, this is the interview for you. From Draper, Utah with Brady Insurance Marketing. Welcome, Ty Brady.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Dude, I appreciate you being here, man. I've been watching you from afar. I love what you're doing. You've been blowing up, and I appreciate your time today. I know you're super busy.
Yes. I know it was a little bit of a challenge to get together, but I appreciate you making things work. So been
Yeah,
great.
man. Likewise, brother. Absolutely. So have you always lived in Draper, Utah?
I have always, my home base is here. My family is here, but I have moved out and come back. It always seemed to come back to here. Later here on the podcast show, you hear about how I built my agency and what I was able to do there. But I was a weekend dad for 2 years, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But yeah, primarily in Utah is
Yeah,
where
man.
I always come back to.
And what were you like? Was insurance like the first thing you did, or what did the career moves look like leading up to where you're at today?
Oh man. So no, I actually have a bachelor's degree in applied science and industrial design. And I actually worked for a general contractor, worked my way up into a project management role. And I built probably 2,000 to 3,000 homes over my career, developed a couple of thousand lots. And obviously in '07, '08, I mean, I thought that would be my career path, right? I was doing well, making six figures. At the peak, we did about $33 million in revenue a year. I mean, so it wasn't a small outfit, but '07, '08 hit. And in November, right before Thanksgiving, I got my last paycheck and they said, see you later. So that was, and then there was a few years there where it was me trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I worked 17 jobs in 1 year, just trying to get the same amount of money that I was making. Lost my house in the process. I had to go live with my mom and dad. Luckily, they had room for us, me and my three kids and my wife. I mean, and then, I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And one of my contractors that I used invited me to go and work for them as a commission sales based person selling vinyl fencing. And I sold vinyl fencing for 5 years. But that first year, a guy introduced me to the senior market and Medicare and insurance. So I think I got licensed in October of '09 is what I ended up doing. And then it kind of took me a little while to get my footing, because when I got an insurance license, there's all different lines of insurance, right? There's life insurance, there's health insurance, there's property and casualty, commercial, workman's comp, those types of things. And I tried it all. And what I fell in love with Medicare. But then you got to understand captive versus non-captive. So I was with the captive shop, and that works for somebody, but it isn't what I wanted to do. Sure. And a lot of people, it works really well being a captive shop. They help with a lot of things. But I realized when I'd write an application, the upline would get $300 and I'd make $100. And I'm like, man, I can't do this. This ain't going to work. I was there for about a year. And I left and found my upline is Kellogg Insurance Marketing. I found them and fell in love with what they do and how they help agents, especially around Kellogg. And that's when I decided to go on the road for 2 years. I'd leave on a Monday or a Sunday, come back on a Friday or Saturday. And my wife used to say, I'm just your weekend booty call, because I was on the road. I was all over the country. And the whole idea was I would go there, I'd order a bunch of leads, I'd go and work with agents that I had recruited. So I sold all over the country, and now I'm in 44 states. And then I would leave them the rest of the leads that I'd ordered to finish up. And that's how I was able to scale my agency, doubled my income every year for the next little while, and just blew it up from there. And now, I assist in training 3,000 to 5,000 agents every year. I'm pushing 800 agents direct to me. And, I have managers all over the country.
Let's go, man. Goodness gracious. How I mean, did that, what's crazy is like, you just shared a wild story of like having some success, losing it all, moving back in with your parents, starting over, working for somebody that used to work for you, right? I mean, that takes some, freaking lack of ego to do that, right? Then you go and, um, find insurance, and then you go and like, dude, now you're helping 800 agents direct to you around the country and managing a book of thousands of clients. And it's like, dang, bro, like, did you see, at what point did you see today as a possibility?
Wow, that is a great question. So one of the things that, at that vinyl fence company, they sat down and the sales manager said, "Hey, Ty, you need to make a dream board." And in fact, I'm going to Africa next on Tuesday. I'll be gone for 4 weeks. So it's one of those things I'm finally fulfilling because I had to find someone to go with me. But that dream board, I have accomplished every single thing on there. On that dream board I made 13 and a half years ago. And from that, I didn't really put a cap on. I didn't even know it was going to get this big, right? I'd go into my mentor and I'd say, "What do I need to do next?" And he's like, "Ty, follow your managers. Ty, follow your agents." So that's all I did. And people say, "Well, when are you going to retire?" I'm like, "There's no reason to retire. This is awesome. The people I'm able to help and the people that are able to, this changes people's lives, financial freedom. It's just a beautiful thing." So I don't know that I actually made a decision. I didn't put a cap on it. And now since then I've got some measurements that I want to achieve, but I didn't say, "Well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that." I mean, I think the first year I brought on like 15 agents. It was pretty small. And then when I really scaled it was 5 years in when I decided to, oh, by the way, I didn't mention this. The first 5 years I did part-time to get to a 6-figure income.
Wow.
I did make a residual income. I did make 6 figures within 14 months of me coming on board. But to get that residual income, it took me 5 years. Actually, it didn't take less than 5 years, 3.5 years. But then 5 years, I went all in recruiting and training agents.
Dude, there's a lot to unpack from this. This is such good intel and info. You guys that are going to be watching this a little bit later, man, you guys are in for a treat. This just keeps getting better. I did have one thing that I was thinking about that I wanted to pivot to before I go back to a couple questions. You mentioned earlier, because we're going to have a bunch of agents start asking me, so I'm just going to help them out right now. You mentioned earlier it was okay for people to text you. Is that still fine?
That is great.
So if they have questions, they need help, and you're watching this, you're like, dude, this Ty Brady dude is blowing my mind. I want to be the next Ty Brady, whatever. Where can they text?
They can, it's 1-385-800-1956. Now, if you text me in the next 4 weeks after this, I will. It is 1-385-800-1956.
Dude, I love it. That's awesome. Appreciate that. You mentioned a dream board. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how like a very small percentage of our audience has ever thought about building a dream board. And
Oh man, they're blowing it.
yeah, talk to them about that.
So I listened to a podcast show of a guy that runs a Fortune 500 company, and I'll relate it back to my dream board. He says, "I will not hire somebody if they do not make a dream board." And he says, when I sit down and interview them, if they don't bring me back a dream board, whether it's a collage on their phone, whether it's a poster board, whatever it is, he says, I won't hire them. He says, when you put that task out there, less than 1% will actually do it. Wow. And then he related, he's like, it's amazing to me when they put, what does your dream house look like? What does your dream income look like? What do you want to see in the next year? Do you want to pay off debt? What's your dream car? What do you want? What is your prime vacation? You want to go on a hunt to Africa? Do you want to have a beach house in Dubai? Whatever, right? What does that look like to you? And he says, it's amazing when you have those dream boards. And he says, I require it to be in the offices of my staff where I come in there and they cross off what they've accomplished, like whether it's paying off $1,000 credit card debt. And he says, it propels them. It's a visual.
I think he keeps getting phone calls because he's on his cell phone. Yeah.
So it propels them to do that next thing. And it's amazing because it's visually seen every single day I put on there, I wanted to get a boat on my dream board. I wanted to get a house. I wanted to get my wife a car. I wanted to take my kids on a Disneyland vacation. I wanted to go on a guided elk hunt. Those are all things. And then just keep asking yourself, what do you want it to be? Do you want to save for your kids' retirement or your kids' college? Do you want to save for retirement? What is it? Put it out there. A lot of times people talk about your mindset. That's a mindset thing when you see it and visually.
100%. It's huge, man. I love that you're saying that because it's rare that we have someone on here who talks about this, but I'm writing down my goals like every single morning. So I'm eating this up. Like this is so strong. Also, I can remember like you're sharing some of this private stuff, and I'm like, man, like I can remember when I was on my honeymoon, and I'm like, writing down goals and trying to build a business. And one of our goals as a newlywed couple was to save $1,000 for a vacation. You know, which is crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Either party, like anybody watching, like they hear some of the things we're doing and they can't imagine that Ty Brady's trying to like take his kids to Disney World. It's like, dude, he could take his kids to Disney World every day right now if he wanted to.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like, but we all start somewhere, no matter where you are, wherever you're sitting, wherever you're watching this from, you can be Ty Brady, like you just can. But you can't do it unless you implement in some of the things he's sharing, like the dream board. What's something on your dream board that you've looked at adding that you haven't accomplished that you would like to share?
My wife is from Virginia, and she wants a beach house in Virginia.
Let's go.
And to be honest with you, I could do it. We prioritized and done a few other things.
Yeah.
So it's my thing is I'm like, when you start getting stuff, whether the RV, the boat, those things own you, honestly. And I mean that in a good way and a bad way. They're great to have, but I mean, we go on a weekly trip because I have two houseboats where it's a week, but it is so rewarding. My kids unplug from all of their devices, and it's just that time. And I mean, they won't miss it. They won't miss it for a world. My kids are awesome wakeboarders. They love the tube. They love to get beat up and have dad drive around in the boat and kick them off the tube. But I mean, that's so there's a fine balance, right? I mean, I believe I will have a beach house in Virginia, and I know I will. In fact, I have the capability of doing it. I just haven't done it.
That's right, man. 100%. Man, dude, this is so good. I'm getting so fired up. Like just hanging out, listening to you. I mean, I have energy anyway, but like I'm gonna have energy for days after this now. You mentioned earlier a mentor.
Yeah.
How important is it to find someone, like if they don't have one, could you become one for them maybe,
When you started the journey of me of doing what I'm doing and growing this agency, I didn't realize the impact that I would make in people's lives. And what I mean by that is I have retired police detectives. And the retired police detective, she told me one day, she's like, Ty, when I was getting ready to retire, Social Security looked very grim. And now that particular agent, $300,000 a year and everything's paid for, 72 years old. I mean, she was a public servant. And I have people that were on state Medicaid. That's what's rewarding, but I didn't understand the impact I would make in these people's lives it's legacy, it's generational wealth to their siblings. And it impacted them in a way where they're able to be financially free. And now they're doing some of the same things that I'm doing, maybe not on the same scale, but they're like, hey, you know what? I've got a good income. I want to help people as well. So, I mean, not only do you help people, I mean, you help them physically, socially, mentally, and financially. It's all aspects of life. It's just not one thing. And I remember times when me being mentored or mentoring someone else, it gets dark and grim. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there's times when you're like, man, can I do this? And all the self-doubt that comes in. I'd go home on a weekend and I'd hug my wife and go to bed, and she's like, hey, we're gonna be all right. Which brings up another point we can talk about is that you need to have support at home. If you don't have support at home, you're in trouble. And I'll explain that a little bit later, but it's so impactful. I mean, some of my core values is value, service, impact, that you can serve, that you can create value, and it makes a huge impact.
Yeah, it does. Speaking of impact, you've talked a lot about your family throughout this already and like how important they are to you. Talk about them. Who's all in that?
Whoo, I always get emotional when I talk about my family because you talk about defining moments when I lost everything. I mean, lost everything. And my daughter, she's actually insurance licensed now. So wrote her first app last week.
That's so cool.
She came to me after we lost everything. So I lost my job in November. In April, I was out of my house. I mean, it was I got involved in one of those illegal foreclosures, and it was a mess. But she came to me one day. We're living at my mom's. Keep in mind, I was living on a golf course, 17th hole, and beautiful house. Thought I'd never leave there. Never had intentions of leaving there. And my daughter came to me and she said, "Dad, when can we move back into our old house?"
Mm.
Ooh, and it was like a dagger to that I felt as a father, as a ooh. I
Mm-hmm.
made a decision that day that I would never let anybody control my destiny again.
Mm.
And there was days that I was on the road and I'd think about that. I'm like, I can't do it. And I would just say, I can't go to the hotel, or I can't go back to the office until I write an app. And that was kind of a goal in the beginning, as I got to get an app every day, every day. I get an app every day. It's 20 apps a month. Within 2 years, I'm great. Right. But that defining moment, my family is everything. It's what I fight for each and every day. I mean, I've got a 21-year-old now and a 6-year-old. And then I've had the support of my wife that, I mean, she was a single mom for those years I was on the road. I mean,
Mm.
I sacrificed birthdays. I sacrificed
Wow.
being home for the parties. I mean, I was on the road.
How long you been married?
22 years.
That's awesome, man. That's cool. I love it. What do you think's been, if you, after we look back on, like, and thank you for sharing that, by the way. I know how much they mean to you. You can feel it, you can see it, you can hear it. Um, and you guys listening, by the way, I'm gonna pivot for a second before asking the question to Ty. Man, this is like, you can tell this dude cares a ton. He's been knocked down a bunch of it in his life. He was tired of getting knocked down. Dude committed, has built something special, is helping a lot of people. And so if you're ever out there and you're like, dude, I would love to get into building a residual income that, you know what I mean, that actually grows and that can't be taken away and I control, right? Um, you need to text this dude, man. You have to. Okay. 385-800-1956. Ty, what would you say has been the secrets, some of the top secrets to your success over these last, the last, how many years have you really been busting it and trying to build something with, when you really started selling every day and recruiting and all that? How many years has that been?
So I've been in the industry 13 and a half years. I have a personal book of probably 850 clients.
Okay.
So I still service. I mean, I started out as an agent, right? So I have 22 managers. I have, 800, over close to 800 agents. And some of the keys I would say is finding the right partner. Okay.
Mm.
And whether you go captive or non-captive, insurance, or even just as a entrepreneur, find that right niche that you want. If you want to go wash windows for a living, go wash windows for a living, right? But I found my path in insurance. So finding the right mentor, they're going to help you get from point A to point B a lot quicker. In a lot of cases, they've experienced what you may go through and circumvent that system. I mean, I've been able to help agents get a 6-figure income in less than a year because of what I went through. I mean, I've done it all. I've tried it all. So finding the right mentor. The second thing is that we talked about it earlier, is a dream board. I think is very crucial. And then another one, I mean, I could go on for days, but the other one, so dream board, and then the support of a spouse, whoever's at home. And here's what happens when you come home, and if you're trying to build something, because the industry that I'm in, you don't make any money until you close that transaction. And if you come home and say, "Hey, honey, I didn't sell anything today," eventually that negativity is going to rub off on that spouse or that partner, and they're going to tell you what, go get a real
Mm-hmm.
job.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the people that are closest to us give us the most negative feedback. Think about that for a minute. Your closest allies, your family, your friends, they're like, you can't do it. You're not going to be successful. And I had the mindset, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove them wrong. I mean, I have uh, 8 sisters and 2 brothers. And I got a brother that now works for me.
Wow.
So he worked for Liberty Mutual for 26 years and had a forced buyout. And I've been talking to him for years to get in the insurance business on the Medicare side. And he got a forced buyout. He's like, Ty, this is the best thing ever. He's like, I feel like I'm making an impact. I'm making a difference. So you have to have that support at home. And remember, there's only 3 types of days in any industry. There's days setting up appointments.
Mm-hmm.
There's days doing presentations, and there's days closing. There's no other type of day. There's no bad days. So if you do one of those things every single day, you're gonna see results.
True. 100%. Yeah. I love that. And there's so many agents that end up think about all those other pieces and they don't actually put in the work. Like if they see people, they make it, you know, they don't, you know, I mean, it's pretty, it ain't rocket science, you know, I mean, you don't even need applied science or industrial design to figure it out, you know, like, which means you're also a really smart dude, by the way. I did not allude to that, but like, that's, I can't even pronounce the words, you know, I mean, come on. Man, I'm liking hanging out with you, bro. Like I'm enjoying this. This is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And dude, you're phenomenal at sharing your story and like speaking. And you're one of the better interviews I've ever had. Like I really mean that. This is awesome. This is cool. What have we not shared about you and what you're doing that you would like to share?
You know, the law of abundance. I know that I'm a man of faith. Yeah, I think later on when we talk on May 15th, I think it's coming up, I'll talk maybe a little bit more about that. But I believe the law of abundance, and where much is given, much is required. And being in the industry that I'm in, it allows me to do a lot in the community. I mean, I coach youth football. I coach youth sports, whether it's lacrosse, wrestling, football. But those kids, our kids, the people that we're raising, they need that. And it allows me to do those things because I have the resources. I mean, I'm not working a 9-to-5 job where I'm sitting there sacrificing those things just to make a paycheck. And that's so it allows me to serve and give back. And with the law of abundance is the universe is very large. And I am convinced that whatever you project or put out there, it will come back to you 100-fold.
I agree, by the way. It's clearly came back to you, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it can for others. What would you say to someone that's like, man, I'm because I personally believe there's over 500,000 agents right now that are unhappy, dissatisfied, alone. They're not receiving the mentorship and help, and they don't know where they're going. And they're like so freaking close. They're teetering on just throwing in the towel, tapping out, and leaving the industry like so many people do. What advice would you give to those that are like thinking about it?
Don't ever give up. And you know, there are, let's say you're not getting let's say you're not getting help, right? There and I can relate this to, there are contract shops out there. You know, they'll give you a contract. They'll give you the same contract I'm going to give you. But if you want the support, partner with people that will actually support you. I don't get paid to recruit, and I get paid when an agent writes business. I have to hit my commitment numbers because of the commitment I made to take those contract levels. I have to. It's not even there's no question. I have to do that. And that's why I'm constantly recruiting. And it's a double-edged sword because, you know, I look at, been in the industry 13 and a half years. My top producers that were top producers, let's say 8 years in, you know, from years 1 to 8, after they get to 9, 10, and 11, and 13 and 14, they're not working like they used to. And I get my new agents that are trying to figure it out, maybe my 1 to 3, and there's some that hit the ground running and go and write 400 or 500 applications in a couple of years. But the sweet spot for me is that 3 to 8 years is where a majority of my production comes from. because they're figuring it out. So they don't give up, number one. Number two is you don't need to know everything before you get started. I mean, I hear people say, well, I don't know the product and I don't know this and I don't know how to. Guys, you know 90% more than you know 90% more than everyone else out there. And I don't know how many presentations that I did reading the summary of benefits with the consumer. Or when I said, hey, you know what? I don't know. Let me do some research and come back to you. Because my initial mindset was I have to sell an app a day. I have to. I mean, I got a family at home. I'm on the road. I've invested thousands of dollars to get here. I got to make this work. My back was up against the wall. And I'm like, right. My wife's like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Okay. I'm like, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? I go back and get a job.
True.
That's the worst thing that happens.
That's good. Dude, that's so good. I love that because a couple things I share a lot of is if you don't quit, you can't fail, right? You said don't give up. Same thing. And then I love to also talk about how everybody's always got analysis paralysis. They want to know everything before they do anything. And you don't have to know it all. Like it's actually, I guarantee you when Ty's training people, like I'm starting to really believe that the more I train someone initially, the worse they will do because I'll just fill their head with so much crap that they don't need yet. And then it like paralyzes them from actually taking action and doing something.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I mean, we talk about insurance, there's compliance, right? You hold the professional license, there's requirements. And if you can't learn to adapt, if you can't learn, right now there's a lot of noise in the Medicare space. And I want to tell agents, listen, if you can't adapt, sell your book and move on. I mean, you're just hurting yourself. But if you can adapt, which I've done, you know, all the changes every year, there's changes. The whole idea is that if you have a professional license, they hold you more accountable. So you chose to get in this industry, or maybe you didn't, but if you chose to get in this industry, then make sure that you learn how to adapt and be compliant. End of story.
Yeah. Amen. Freaking strong, dude. I love it, man. I'm having a blast with you. I appreciate you being on. We'll add some, close us out, add some final words for the audience that's listening today. And then please throw your cell number out for them to text you again.
Yes, sir. You're going to leave some final words? Or you want me to leave some final words?
You do it. You've done such an elegant job today. You do it this time.
You know, I am not for everybody, but the ones that I am, you can talk to hundreds of my agents and what we've been able to do, and they are my champions. They know where I've come from. They know where they've come from. They know what this industry does. They know maybe not even this industry, but they know the principles that it takes to be successful as an entrepreneur with whatever business venture you're going to start. So go back to action, no paralysis, right? And you want to make more money, shake more hands. Mm-hmm. Tell people who you are and what you do. Have that elevator speech. You know, with Brady Insurance Marketing, we have 3 different legs or stools, right? One of them is direct to consumer. I'm trying to generate leads, lead generation. Then the other component is recruiting and training. So the whole idea is I'm able to duplicate myself, and they can then in turn duplicate themselves, and they leave a lasting legacy for them and their families.
That's right.
And with all of you that, if you want to talk, just shoot me a text. I will get back with you. I promise you, I will get back with you. It is 1-385-800-1956. I will talk to you as much or as little as you want. And if you don't want to talk to me, that's great. You know, I get it. I'm not for everybody, but the people that have partnered with me and worked with me, we've been able to do tremendous things.
Yeah, you definitely have. Ty, you've been incredible. Thank you for being on the podcast. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you, Ty Brady. Thank you for listening to Power Player Podcast. We will see you on the next episode. Adios.